You can't be serious about that, can you?
I'm very serious about it.
I'll give him credit for that because there's a lot of the bravery for running away when he got tired.
No, the bravery.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry. From round one, running away, jumping up and down, falling down on the floor. Yeah.
$1 million.
He did not, but go ahead.
For a clown show. For a freaking clown show. Jake Paul embarrassed himself, embarrassed the sport, and embarrassed everyone that calls himself a fighter.
Stephen Smith confronts Jake Paul in a live interview after his knockout loss to Anthony Joshua. Smith questions why Jake chose to fight such an elite opponent so early, calling it a dangerous move. Jake responds confidently, saying he still has everything in place, the best team money can buy and solid training. He insists the loss doesn't stop his journey and believes he will continue in boxing.
Nah, definitely I need a few more fights. I'm not taking them on in my next bout, but a couple more years of experience with the team I got. I'm surrounded by the best team in the world possible that money can afford, so I'm getting exponentially better.
Logan Paul responds to fan and media backlash, dismissing much of it as hate that would exist regardless of the outcome. He explains that fighting at this level naturally brings criticism. Logan admits no one expected Jake to beat a two-time Olympic champion, but says his confidence and determination made the attempt meaningful. Even with a broken jaw, Jake stayed positive, joking and filming content from the hospital. Logan says this mindset, pushing through fear and adversity, is what drives Jake. Despite the loss, he views the fight as a net positive that proves Jake's toughness and willingness to take risks most avoid.
These are haters. Haters gonna hate. It's just the name of the game, you know. When you're operating at the high level that my brother and I are, the haters come with it. I mean, statistically speaking, part-timer, I think the narrative's dead. I've been showing up every single Monday for the past month and a half. I've wrestled in 4 out of the 5 times I was there. I won every single match. So like, everyone who's yapping can now shut their trap because the narrative's dead.
I mean, you brought the receipts. I think that the proof stands for itself. And you mentioned your brother. Jake went 6 rounds on Friday night with Anthony Joshua. I know how proud you are of him. You were in the hospital with him afterwards. You called him an absolute warrior and said on your Instagram that his broken jaw won't break his spirit. How did you think, and what did you think of how the fight went down?
So, from strictly a logical point of view, I actually think it went down exactly as it was supposed to. I'm not sure anyone really thought that Jake was going to beat Anthony Joshua, but you have to understand, being his brother and in his close circle, he has this conviction that makes you believe, and he has this ability to defy reality and morph it into his vision of how it'll transpire that makes you think he'll win. However, like this was my opinion, this was a logical conclusion to the fight. The 2-time Olympian broke the influencer boxer's jaw. Like, okay, you know, we could have wrote it in a story and it would have made sense. That said, I think he did amazing. I'm incredibly proud of him. I think it was a net positive. I think the world can see now how tough Jake Paul is. And
Eddie Hearn defends Jake's performance, saying claims that he was just running ignore reality. From the start, Jake had little chance against Joshua, making survival the goal. Hearn says the real measure was endurance, and lasting all 6 rounds exceeded expectations. Many doubted Jake would last even a few. While not competitive in the traditional sense, surviving 6 rounds against an elite heavyweight showed resilience, mental strength, and the ability to handle extreme pressure.
Well, Jake was running and Jake was holding. But listen, I mean, at the end of the day, Jake had one job, and that was to try and survive. I mean, he was never, ever going to win the fight, ever. And if you would have said to me, do I think he'll go 6 rounds? I would have said absolutely not. I mean, I felt that it would take AJ a couple of rounds to get hold of him, because I knew Jake can move a bit and he'd be moving off the back foot and he'd be holding. But it was the way that he did it, I think, was actually quite impressive. Like, not that particular part, but the way that he would, you know, the way that he was strong in the clinch. You know, he wouldn't let AJ get his shots off in the clinch. He made him miss a few times. And obviously AJ's been out of the ring for a while. But to be honest, I think the most fascinating thing of the whole night in terms of the fight was how he didn't get flatlined by that right hand. I mean, I said going into the fight, it's probably going to take AJ a few rounds to get hold of him. And I also said, as soon as he lands clean, the fight's over, right? He landed a few before, but the first that he landed really clean was the final shot. But, you know, he never flatlined Jake. I mean, he did break his jaw in 2 places, which is a disaster. But there are a lot of heavyweights that would have been out cold from that right hand. I mean, one of them was Francis Ngannou in a pretty similar shot, really. Do you know what I mean? So I actually give Jake unbelievable credit for doing it in the first place, but his performance as well. I mean, I stand by the fact that I think he's just a decent cruiserweight, but like he did go in with Anthony Joshua, and look, the world is full of criticism and opinions and negativity. Who else is doing what he's doing at what is he, late 20s? I mean, quite phenomenal. I mean, the guy's a complete madman. I'm watching him come out to that ring walk, and he's just an incredible.
Stephen Smith adds that Jake Paul cannot hide behind his YouTuber background when facing a true elite fighter. He believes that if Jake still identifies mainly as a content creator, he should not be fighting top-level boxers. According to Smith, high-stakes fights demand full professional commitment, not crossover fame.
Professional boxing trainers for years. He takes the sport very seriously.
Thank you. So let me ask you, that's the question I have, because great kid, great businessman, by the way, amazing, and I know how like he does all this, the character and the persona. We keep saying that he doesn't want to be a boxer. He's not a boxer, but then
Jake Paul is a boxer.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my point.
Exactly. He's a boxer.
He can fight. He can fight. I respect it. So go in there against fighters. You should be climbing the ladder towards those other fighters and taking the sport seriously to the point where you're fighting
Derek Chisora refuses to give Jake Paul real respect, rejecting the idea that simply stepping into the ring equals bravery. He dismisses praise for lasting 6 rounds, pointing out that Jake spent much of the fight running, falling, avoiding exchanges, and throwing few punches. Chisora argues bravery isn't showing up for money, but risking oneself for a greater cause. While Jake committed to the event, surviving 6 rounds does not automatically earn respect for courage or skill. He criticizes Jake for turning the loss into social media content rather than showing true fighting spirit.
You're fighting someone who you're supposed to it's not supposed to look competitive, he's not supposed to hit you, he's not supposed to go more than 3 rounds, but at the same time, you need to know how to control the pressure. I think AJ's demeanor in the build-up was someone who was like, you know what, everyone's saying these things, but this is how I see it. Yeah, I rate him, he can box a bit. He did say in an interview with Steve Bunce that like, when he was talking certain things, there's a part of me that wants to punch him in his face, but I'm just gonna chill. And I feel like that's how he handled the immense pressure.
The last time we saw AJ fuming like this, like when he actually tried to do something, was with Dylan. So we should not judge him when he says something like this, because when he don't say nothing, we say, oh, why is he not saying anything back? Yeah. And when he says something, we're like, oh.
Another analyst argues that respect should not be attached to Jake Paul, saying the fight was always about money, not competition. Inside the ring, Jake's repeated grabbing and holding showed fear rather than composure. He explains this was understandable, as Joshua was a dangerous, active heavyweight known for backing up his words. As the pressure increased, Jake became more defensive and desperate to survive. The analyst concludes this was self-preservation, not bravery, adding that even a massive payday doesn't automatically earn respect in boxing.
Thought about that before getting in the ring with him. And I think a lot of things were revealed inside the ring. You know, all the grabbing of the leg and stuff like that. That shouldn't have been. You know, that almost looked like, it reminded me of Troy. You guys remember Troy when Orlando Bloom's character grabbed his brother's leg, you know? You know what I mean? It looked like he was desperately scared, you know? But I think he should have been desperately scared, because AJ was coming to hurt him. This wasn't a Mike Tyson fight. He wasn't 58 years old. This dude is 36. And Anthony Joshua, like he said, because I've heard AJ say stuff like that. Hey, I'm going to F you up. He said the same thing to Helenius, because he thought Helenius was looking at him crazy. And it's like, what do you know, why are you looking at me like that? Right? And Aleni's like, huh? You know. And what happened to Aleni is he got knocked out, and needless to say, he tested positive for something. But yeah, so if you hear AJ say, hey, I'm gonna F you up, oh yeah, that's what he means. And I think Jake Paul knew it. And I mean, he avoided a lot of big shots at the beginning of that fight, you know. But then as AJ started getting closer and those punches started getting, you know, more in range of hitting him, the grabbing happened a lot, you know, more. You know, he started gripping off.
Chris Mannix and Sergio Mora placed the blame on Jake Paul while analyzing Joshua's 6th round knockout. They argue Jake didn't just lose, but embarrassed himself and the sport by lacking real boxing fundamentals. Mora explains that true fighters are trained to handle fatigue, pain, and danger, while Jake learned how to punch, not how to fight under pressure. They believe Joshua controlled the bout and chose not to end it early. Both analysts call the fight disappointing and damaging to boxing's image.
A freaking clown show. Jake Paul embarrassed himself, embarrassed the sport, and embarrassed everyone that calls himself a fighter. And I've been telling you this for years. The thing about boxers is we train to be tired. We train to be hurt. We train to roll with punches. We train for a lot of things that this YouTube Disney star has been nobody. Never learned the trait. He never learned how to fight. He learned how to throw some punches. He learned how to box. And I told you it's because Jake Paul had the resources. He can have a head start in this career like you did in life, and you can make it out. But the thing is, when a fighter really wants to hurt another non-fighter, he can do it, and he can do it a lot easier and a lot faster. Anthony Joshua played with his food, and I'm going to tell you right now, he played with his food. I don't think he should have went to the 6th round, maybe the 4th at latest, because Jake Paul was running. He wasn't boxing. He was running, and every time he had a chance to try to tackle Anthony Joshua in fear, he was on his knees. It looked like he was praying. Jake Paul spent more times on his knees than you did in college praying for a girlfriend. It was embarrassing, Chris Mannix. It was embarrassing. And all the people that tuned in to Netflix and everyone else, just like the Mike Tyson fiasco that happened a couple of years ago, we feel disgusted for having to watch that.
I'm not going to defend the fight. It was a bad fight. It was actually worse.
You're not going to put him on. You're not going to put him on the cover of Sports Illustrated again?
No, because we put him on the cover of Sports Illustrated for very different reasons than boxing. It was a power issue, as you know.
Ben Shalom strongly criticizes the fight, calling it a freak show that crossed a dangerous line. He says some crossover events are harmless, but this one carried real risk. As a promoter, he stresses how serious boxing's medical dangers are. He warns these fights are treated as entertainment until someone is seriously hurt. Shalom argues the bout mocked boxing and hurt its reputation, noting many stay silent because of money. He says boxing is one punch away from tragedy and sees no justification for a mediocre fighter jumping weight divisions to face a two-time champion.
View, Ben, on the Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua circumstance. I mean, a lot of people talking about the discredit it does to boxing. I don't put it in the category of boxing. I put it in the category of entertainment and Anthony Joshua being introduced to America as a media star. What's your overall view of what it does or doesn't do for boxing? Jake Paul being licensed in a fight that many people think that he shouldn't have been licensed to fight, in a commission that often does that. As a promoter, do you think it's a bad look for boxing, or are you thinking it doesn't really matter, it's not really what boxing's about?
I usually and have said in the past that things can be things, you know, you've got to take it for what they are, but in this occasion I do think it is a freak show, if I'm honest. I also think it's dangerous. I'm sat here as a boxing promoter and I see what goes on with the medicals before and after fights and how dangerous the sport is. And I saw Callum Simpson, the fight should have been stopped way before it was, but was in trouble on Saturday night. It's all a bit of fun and it's all a money grab until someone gets seriously hurt, seriously damaged, and then the whole sport comes into disrepute. For me, it makes a mockery of the sport of boxing. For me, it's no one in the industry wants to talk badly about it because everyone's lined, the pockets are getting lined. And when you look at that, and kids will look at that, and fans will look at that, and sponsors will look at that and think that that is boxing, as I say, we're one punch away from something serious. And yeah, it's
Ben, on the flip side of that argument, mate, you will tell me that you knew that Chris Eubank wasn't right to go into that fight?
No, but Simon, let's be completely honest, right? Whatever you want to say about that fight, these are two experienced professional fighters. Chris Eubank Jr. has been in fights previously in his career where he's...
Duke McKenzie criticizes the level of competition Jake Paul faces, calling it very poor. He claims fighters from his own gym, many not elite, could perform just as well or better. McKenzie mocks the idea of earning titles against weak opposition, saying such labels mean little. He believes these fights are about easy money, not real risk, and criticizes athletes from other sports entering boxing, insisting it is an elite discipline that should not be diluted by novelty events.
It would take a lot of my time and a lot of my patience to train these guys. Now, they don't know a right hook from a meat hook. They don't know a jab, from a proper boxing jab to a jab in the arm with an injection. They haven't learnt the basic fundamentals. Nobody's taught them to keep their hands up and their chin down. Nobody's taught them how to jab properly. Like I say, these guys were just swinging shots on a wing and a prayer. And it was quite painful to watch. I don't know who coaches these guys. I don't know. Maybe they're MMA, maybe they're kickboxers, maybe they're professionals in their chosen field, but they're not being trained by boxing coaches. That's clear. What I would do, you'd have to strip them down and start from square one. And I mean, I've got a lot of guys in my gym, and a lot of these guys probably would do better if they entered this Misfits competition. I'd have guys from my gym calling themselves world champion, because at the end of the 6 rounds, Timur was crowned and still heavyweight world Misfits champion. Well, if that's the level of opposition, I might even head a few of my guys into that, see if they can't nick a few quid. They're not going to get hurt. It's, what surprises me about all of these crossover organisations that want to, you've got footballers that want to be boxers, you've got MMA that want to be boxers, you've got boxers that want to be boxers, you've got table tennis, you've got cricketers, you've got, name any sport you want, rugby,